You are watching The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman, exclusively on ABC Amber TV.
Ambazonian Presidential Recognition Awards, APRA 2023.
In the heart of Ambazonia, a new chapter unfolds as valor meets recognition. This is not just another evening news story, it is the dawn of a tradition that will echo through time. Join us on December 30th for a historic broadcast as we bring to you the first ever Ambazonia Presidential Recognition Awards, APRA 23. Beneath the indomitable skies of freedom, President Samuel Ikome Sako will honor our heroes, men and women whose pursuits for autonomy have become the lifeline of a nation. In a land graced by bravery, watch as we cast a spotlight on those who've sacrificed beyond measure. APRA 23 isn't just an awards ceremony. It is the embodiment of our unity, strength, and the unyielding spirit of Ambazonia. Ignite the torch of pride with us. Feel the heartbeat of a cultural renaissance, ready to inspire generations to come. APRA 23 aims to pave the path towards monumental accomplishment. Witness the extraordinary, be part of a legacy as we broadcast live from the first APRA, where the end of the year marks the beginning of a lasting tribute. For the people of Ambazonia, join us in embracing this journey, commemorating the guardians of the Ambazonian heritage and scripting the narrative for the Ambazonian future. APRA 23, a testament of resilience, honoring the soul of a nation. This December 30th, be there when history is made.
Echoing with hope, Ambazonian Presidential Recognition Awards, APRA 2023, where heroes rise and legends are born.
Sovereign silhouette, the emblem of Ambazonia. From the azure embrace of the Atlantic reflecting from the Ambas Bay, the iconic Fako Mountain ascends with a silent, stoic grace, carving a silhouette against the sky. This towering sentinel is more than a geographical marvel. It is the heart of southern Cameroons, the stoic guardian of Ambazonia, a symbol steadfast as the unyielding spirit manifests in the unity of the land's 13th counties. Encircling this earthen spire, a dove of peace edges its arc, untouched and serene. As it soars with wings unfurled, it casts shadows upon the land, each feather a brushstroke of tranquility. Against the canvas of the heavens, 13 stars glimmer, the celestial acknowledgement of each county's shared dreams and harmonious virtues. The dove, in its eternal flight, is not merely a bird, but an embodiment of the collective longing for a peaceful existence under a shared identity. Beneath the mountain top, firmly grounded in the richness of the earth, twin elephant tusks rise as natural monuments. Their acts, regal and commanding, capture the noble essence of the land spirit animals. This emblem, this seal of Amazonia, is no mere insignia. It is the beacon that illuminates the path to shared prosperity. It is an oasis of unity in a world parched by discord, a visual whisper of a nation's promise, echoing across generations. Every curve, every symbol within the emblem tells the story of Southern Cameroons, an epic scripted by the enduring strength and unity of its communities. Each page imbued with the hopes and enduring spirit of its people. Sovereign silhouette, the emblem of Amazonia.
Wishing all the people of Southern Cameroon, Amazonia, a Christmas filled with hope, peace, and the warmth of unity in the face of conflict. May the spirit of Christmas bring comfort to the prisoners of conscience, strength to the refugees, and courage to the Amazonian restoration forces. Let the light of the season inspire us to stand together in solidarity and work towards a future of peace and freedom. From ABC Amba TV, on behalf of the government of Amazonia, may the message of love and resilience shine brightly in the hearts of all. Christmas of hope, unity in adversity.
Greetings, fellow Amazonians. Welcome to The Horizon, the voice of the Amber Woman. This is our last show for the year, And we hope that you will join us and take the message we have for you today heartily as we round up the year and plan to enter 2024. Let me start by greeting all of you, those who are watching from the home front, those who are in the diaspora, those who are on ground one. And I want to say I appreciate all of you who have been our supporters throughout the whole year. Today, we have our guest, our one and only Dr. Fred Lobadi, who is going to be joining us for a very, very important topic. The topic today is the CPDM regime's scheme to confiscate power in both Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia and La République du Cameroon. Hear me out. I say the CPDM Biya regime scheme to confiscate or hold on to power in both La République du Cameroon and the Federal Republic of Ambazonia. Dr. Lobadi, welcome to the Horizon. Let me give you a moment to greet our people, and then I will start the program formally.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be with our people, and I hope that we'll be able to share good information that will help them to understand exactly what is going on and also how they can have hope, knowing that the wicked will not succeed against us.
Thank you so much. I'm going to take us back before we delve into this topic. I'm going to take us back to exactly 7 years ago. On December 22nd of 2016, the Provincial Episcopal Conference held in Bamenda. And there was a memorandum that was presented to the head of state, His Excellency, I'm just reading the title, Memorandum presented to the head of state, His Excellency President Paul Biya, by the bishops of the ecclesiastical province of Bamenda on the current situation of unrest in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon. So this was exactly 7 years ago. And I'm going to read some portions of that because this will lead us to our topic of today. It says, the first paragraph, say, Your Excellency, for almost 1 month now, there has been a series of unrest and violence in some towns of the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon, occasioned by the strike of the Anglophone lawyers and of the Teachers' Trade Union of the English system of education. These have led to the loss of human life and to the destruction of property of some of our citizens. There have been flagrant abuses of human rights as demonstrated by credible eyewitnesses' accounts and by pictures on local television channels and social media. This has led to a premature end to the first term of the school year and paralyzed the court system in these regions to the detriment of school children, students, parents, and the administration of justice. At the moment, it seems that the government and the striking groups have reached an impasse, and it is not likely that the schools are going to open even when the second term begins for the rest of the country. These unrests are symptomatic of a deeper unease among the inhabitants of the geographical circumscription of our nation. Then it goes further to talk about the historical background of the problem. But one thing that I think I must read before we proceed is what they define as the Anglophone problem. You say the Anglophone problem, it should be clear from the brief historical sketch presented above what the crux of the so-called Anglophone problem is. They had gone about talking about the us joining La République by us getting independence by joining either Nigeria or La République. They went through all that history and everything that Ahijo and Biya did till that point. So I'm not going to go through all that, but I'm going to go to this particular point here. It should be clear from the brief historical sketch presented above what the crux of the so-called Anglophone problem is. No matter what some self-appointed elite and spokespersons for Anglophone Cameroonians as well as government ministers say in public, the participation of various strata of the population and the growing popularity of separatist movements among younger and older members of the Anglophone community demonstrate that there is an Anglophone problem. There is a consciousness among Anglophone Cameroonians that all is not well and something needs to be done about their plight. What it is, the Anglophone problem, is number one, the failure of successive governments of Cameroon since 1961 to respect and implement the articles of the Constitution that uphold and safeguard what British Southern Cameroons brought along in the Union in 1961. Number two, the flagrant disregard for the Constitution demonstrated by the dissolution of political parties and the formation of one political party in 1966, the sacking of Joa, and the appointment of Mona in 1968 as the Prime Minister of West Cameroon, and other such acts judged by West Cameroonians to be unconstitutional and undemocratic. Number three, the cavalier management of the 1972 referendum, which took out the fundamental element, federalism, of the 1961 Constitution. Number four, the 1984 law amending the Constitution, which gave the country the original East Cameroon name, the Republic of Cameroon, and thereby erased the identity of the West Cameroonians from the original Union, West Cameroon, which had entered the Union as equal partner, effectively ceased to exist. And number five, the deliberate and systematic erosion of the West Cameroon cultural identity, which the 1961 Constitution sought to preserve and protect by providing for a bicultural federation. Doc, I just wanted to react to this because this is leading us to what we're going to talk about. Just react to this portion that I read, and then we'll get into that CPDM scheme.
Correct. At the time this document was written, it was Archbishop Essoa, who was the Bishop of Bamenda, and he was honest, and they wrote that document out of a clear conscience. Right now, as we're speaking, the new bishop is this new man, what his name again is, who is from Lubialem, and I hear that his brother is representing La République du Cameroun in the United Nations, who is collaborating with Paul Biya, and he's been bought off. So that document is now no longer held up by the same institution, the Archbishop of Bamenda, any longer, because he has been bribed. The new Archbishop has been bought off by La République du Cameroun. But that document came when you had the old Archbishop Essoa, who was honest and sincere. And what they articulated was the truth.
Yes, I think you were referring to Kia, the one that is right now,
Correct.
who is a staunch supporter of beer. Okay, so then we will go now to this. I'm going to come back periodically to this article because it also enlisted the things that had been done to Southern Cameroonians that are concrete things that people feel in their bones. So I'm going to go back to it periodically as we discuss. But let's go to this extract that we all saw about the CPDM's strategy to conserve power in both regions, both Southern Cameroons and both La République du Cameroon. Doc, the article that we read did touch on different groups. It touched on the Betis, it touched on the Northerners, it touched on the Bamilekis. We will focus mostly on our people, the Anglophones, who they call Anglophones, which is people from the former British Southern Cameroons, that they call Northwest, Southwest. But briefly, can you just share with our listeners the aspects that affect the other subgroups?
Correct. So anybody who has been a very keen observer of what is going on in Cameroon since independence knows that things have not been going well, not only for the former British Southern Cameroon citizens we call Ambazonia today, but even for the entire country. We realize that while other nations are developing and advancing very well, La République is rather getting backward, regressing. Not only
Mhm.
infrastructures like roads are bad, but corruption in the government is getting worse, and tribalism in governmental infrastructures, institutions, where a special group around Bia's village are privileged to occupy, you know, special positions like the Ministry of Finance in the military, and all those cases take place, and other groups are literally despised. And those few that are selected from other groups, the people don't like them, and they seem to work against the interest and welfare of their people. People have noticed this and felt like something was going on. But recently, thankfully, a secret document has been released, which literally articulates the fact and confirms that it's true. Something mischievous has been planned by that group around Biya that claims that they are ruling Cameroon. And in fact, their plans for the future are not for the better. Their plans are even worse. Not only concerning the former British Southern Cameroon citizens or Amazonia, but even the rest of Cameroon. And we want to bring this out to our people as much as possible. I would recommend, as you have the means and the opportunity to lay hands on this article, that people should study it and know the mindset of the so-called government of La République du Cameroon. Because if you know the thoughts and mindset and intentions of your enemy, then you know how you interact with them, what you say when you talk with them, and what to do to preserve and protect yourself. So that is why we are talking about this, basically to raise awareness to this secret, so-called secret document, which is now public, and also that people should be well informed and know exactly how they handle themselves.
Yes, thank you so much, Doc. Since we're going to focus on the section that pertains to what they call the Anglophones, those of us who are from the Federal Republic of Amazonia, I'm going to read sections of that and ask you to talk about it. But before that, there's a section that says that um, it says that their goal, their motto is number one, each member of our tribe must initiate one of his or her children to whom he or she must pass on this protocol in the form of a confidential inheritance to be passed from father to son of all for all eternity. And number
Mhm.
two, our preservation of power requires that we be replaced by our descendants, and for that to happen, they must be almost the only ones to the major schools of political management in the country. Those were some two key points that they emphasize. But let's go to the Anglophone section. The Anglophones, we know they don't want secession, but to win big, we'll have to accuse them of separatism and terrorism. Well, let's talk about this. They say we know they don't want secession. What do they mean by they know we don't want
Well, what
secession?
they mean is the few bribed and corrupted citizens of the former British Island Commonwealth around here, like the Paula Tanganjis, Philemon Yang, and Dion Gutes. That's what they say, that they don't want cessation. That's what they think they know, but that's not true. The authentic citizens, inhabitants of the former British Cameroon want to totally be separated from La République du Cameroon, and in fact, right now are totally separated. It's just that they are interfering and killing our people and causing trouble. If you do a real vote, one man, one vote, the former British Southern Cameroon citizens will vote to totally be separated from La République du Cameroon. So they are telling a lie.
Absolutely. That's I said, where are you getting your information from when I read that? It says, but to win big, we have to accuse them of separatism and terrorism. Okay, let me go
Which
on.
is
Number
why
two.
you see them each time they go even to the United Nations to speak, they keep trying to call us terrorists. Now, in some other outings in this program, we have defined who a terrorist is. We mentioned that a terrorist is somebody who goes to a peace-loving, quiet individual who is not causing trouble and does acts to cause terror in their hearts, to cause harm to them. So the people of the former British Cameroon have never caused harm to the people of Francophone Cameroon, those who were controlled by the French. But however, since independence, their military has been in our land, extorting money from people, terrorizing people, beating them, taking them captive and locking them secretly and killing some, and nobody will know much about it. And most recently, since 2016, they have come into our villages and burned hundreds of them, we believe over 500 to 700 villages, killed so many people and inflicted terror into the hearts of the people of the Southern Cameroons. They are the terrorists. So you hear them saying that they will accuse us of being terrorists. They know that we are not terrorists. So
Yes.
that is just a false accusation. It's like we say, when a dog looks into a mirror and sees an image of what it doesn't like, it backs at the mirror. So La Republique is a terrorist. So when they see us, they see their actions and then try to accuse us of what they are doing. They are the terrorists, and they want to claim that we are separatists. No, we are not separatists. Biya is the one who seceded from the
Absolutely.
former agreement between the British Southern Cameroons and La République du Cameroon. What they agreed in Fumban was a union of two states of equal status. And with time, they have compromised. And in 1985, he crowned it by changing the name of the country to what they were before they met us in Fumban. So he is the one who seceded. He's the one who separated. But he is not intelligent enough to carry it to its logical conclusion by pulling their troops and leaving us alone. So just because they want to steal our resources. So they are the separatists. They are the terrorists. We are not separatists. We are not even seeking for secession. Biya seceded. We just want to be left alone in our own country because Biya seceded. Biya separated their country by changing their name to what they were before. So, in principle, they are falsely accusing us. They are liars.
Thank you so much. And I hope people will remember this. We are ending 2023. We want to empower our people with knowledge. Sometimes people know things and they just live in the back of their mind, but you have to remember important things to fight for what you want, to continue to ensure that you don't get dragged into the special status that they want you to accept. So we are reminding you of this thing so you keep yourself empowered. And so basically what Doc has said, that they are the ones who seceded, they are the ones who are the terrorists. Keep those two things in mind. Number two, they said we must do everything to ensure that their sense of rigor is perceived as leftism and ridiculed by other citizens. Go ahead,
Right.
Doc.
So rigor. He when he came to power, he used the phrase rigor and moralization. At the time, there was a little bribery in some ministries under Ahijo, so people had the impression that he was going to make sure that people do the right thing, and moralize. That means do what is supposed to be done right. If you have good conscience and good character, if you are occupying an office and somebody comes for service, you don't have to take money for that. You offer the service in a timely fashion, like you're supposed to do. So he brought the sense of rigor and moralization. But with time, what we have realized is that they have rather gotten even worse. They can never even do one thing that is right. So the English speaking people are moral, they're not perfect, and they have a sense of rigor doing the right thing. So they, in their cultist mind, when he says they're leftist, if you care to dabble into occultism, among the occult, Freemasonry, Rosicrucianism, they have left thinking leftist groups among them. So they are trying to say that because we have a sense of rigor and moralization, they want the rest of the francophones that BS seceded and carried away when he separated us to think that our sense of rigor is bad. That
Mhm.
means they want to see that which is good as being bad, while they continue in that which is bad for the whole country. Um, that's what I would say about it. But it's because of their warped mind. They don't have a sense of righteousness or that which is good. You can get so bad that it's difficult for you to start doing good. You can Each thought will only continue to do more and more bad things, and that's where they are right now.
Absolutely, and I think it boils down to ethics. I'm glad we have a program that the ethics department leads every other Friday that educates our people on ethics, and that is essentially what really differentiates us from them. Uh, number the next point, they have a broken sentence, but it says it continues this. There are agreements between France and England by which the latter renounce all historical claims to English speaking Cameroons.
Correct.
Go
So
ahead,
let me try
Paul.
to expound on that a little bit. If you remember, after the Second World War, there was a Cold War that broke out between the Soviet Union and the Western nations. Now,
Mhm,
during the Second World War, Russia, in combination with Britain and France and the United States, collaborated to crush Germany and their allies, which included Japan and some other countries. Anyway, like Italy. And after that war, Britain was indebted over 200% of their GDP. That means the government of England was owing more, and I know who that money is owed to. We'll leave that one for now. Over 200% of what the whole nation produces in one year. So when this Cold War broke out, as you remember, most and Africa was attaining its independence towards the end of the 1950s. Remember that Ghana became the first in 1957. Before Ghana acquired independence, we had separated from Nigeria, and we were in Boya practicing democracy. So we were the first who separated and started practicing democracy since 1954. So
mhm,
Nkrumah became independent with Nigeria, Lumumba became independent with Congo, and they had feelings towards the Soviet Union. They had
mhm,
feelings towards the communist form of government. That's theoretically, cognitively, they thought that maybe it's a good system of government. So they were dabbling with that. And if you remember carefully, the UPC party that was very strong in East Cameroon, that the French, in collaboration with the puppet Ahijo, were killing in a genocide which happened in East Cameroon. Many of
mhm.
them took refuge in West Cameroon. So
Yes.
they realized that Ambazonia, or the people of British Southern Cameroon, they run a risk of basically becoming like the emerging African countries that are affiliated or have sensitivities towards communism. And so Britain and France, and I will tell you the United States behind the scenes, they
Mhm,
agreed that they would not allow that to happen. So that's why they compromised our quest for independence. So our
mhm,
forefathers had met in Manfred and agreed that we will seek total independence for the former British Southern Cameroon as a separate nation, just like Togo and any other nation. But Andrew Cohen was the representative of Great Britain in the United Nations, and Jacques Foccart was the Frenchman who was preparing African leaders that will lead the African territories. They had a behind the scenes discussion that they will not allow the former British Southern Cameroon to become truly independent in spite of our experimentation and experience with democracy, because they did not want us to be taken over by the Soviet Union as the UPC infiltrated our area. So they gave two options. One,
Mm-hmm.
either we join Nigeria that will be controlled by the British, or we join
Mm-hmm.
La République du Cameroon that will be controlled by the French, and
French.
thereby preventing us from being taken over by the Soviet Union. That is the agreement that they had behind the scenes. Now, and they also said, remember, Britain was indebted to 200% of their GDP, that if we voted to join La République du Cameroon, France will pay Britain £2 million for their investments in West Cameroon. Now, all those um, plantations, whether it's rubber, palm nuts, and every planted in the
Bananas.
southwest, those were done by the Germans, not the
Mm-hmm.
British. But the British
Right.
helped with the WAF of Tico, the Victoria Seaport, and a few other infrastructures. So they said that if we voted to join La République du Cameroon, France will give Britain £2 million. And as you remember, the discussions which we were used to in peace without fight was Foncha, who originated from Chang, wanting us to join La République du Cameroon because his other family was in Chang, in Bamlikeland. Now, Endele, even though we had left, and he is the one who was the only doctor in the Nigerian government, the only person with a doctor in front of his name from the Nigerian government, succeeded with that power and clout to carry us out of Nigeria and bring us to Boya. He wanted us to go back to Nigeria because his wife was from Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as everything eventually ended in the plebiscite, the majority voted to join La République du Cameroon, and that exchange, that £2 million exchange, took place. And then, as that happened, Charles de Gaulle, who became the first president of France after all the stuff that happened in the Second World War. Germany literally marched into Paris and confiscated the government and destroyed what is called government. Charles de Gaulle ran to Britain in 1940 and was communicating with the French over a radio program, just like we're doing with our TV right now. He was communicating with the French over a radio program. And after the war, when America came and helped Britain to crush the Germans and liberate the French, Charles de Gaulle came back and they made him a hero, and he became the leader. So a government from exile took over in France. And so when that happened, that we voted to join La République de Cameroon, Charles de Gaulle said, West Cameroon, or the former British Southern Cameroon, is a small gift from the Queen of England.
Mm-hmm.
Now remember, the
Yeah.
Queen of England, who recently died, came to power in 1953. And our forefathers, led by Ndele, like I said, left Enugu in 1954. So that
Yeah.
Queen of England knew everything that truly happened about us. But you will never hear Britons cough or say a word. And the reason is because an exchange of money took place behind the scenes, and that's what they're talking about in that article.
Absolutely. Wow. That's a lot of information, Doc. I hope our people are listening. This program will be replayed again next week because we'll not have the Horizon next week, so that those who did not have the opportunity in the home front to learn from this will learn from this. The next point that is made in that article is, and other agreements would have been made between French-speaking Cameroon and France to ensure that no English speaker would ever become president of that country.
Correct. And if you go further, it says that is why Frundi, who won the elections in 1992, his victory was stolen and given to Paul Biya. He literally won the elections. They know it. They confessed it in that document, and they stole it. So what happened was, basically, the French way of doing things is inferior to the English way of doing things. You look at it internationally. Well,
Yes.
the Anglo-Saxon world, not only the United States, but all the English-speaking nations, which is the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Britain, which includes England, and of course, you know about Scotland. All those countries, they dominate the earth in all areas, economically, academically, in all areas. And in fact, everybody who wants to be heard must speak English. The French are struggling to get something from them. If you do research and you want to go and research online, you will realize that less than 4% of authentic, genuine articles with results are of the French origin. The rest The majority of them are of English origin. And any other nation, whether it's Japan or Russia or any other country, even China, if they want their articles to be looked at, they must translate it into English. So the Anglo-Saxon culture is more dominant, and they know that, and they are afraid because truly, if the Francophones were transformed to think the way the Anglo-Saxon think, that country will be much better, and French will disappear. And so that's why they made an agreement with the French that they will never allow an English speaking person, somebody from former British Southern Cameroon, to rule the country. Because if you are the head, you will dominate what happens in the country. So if you have an English speaking person, say Foncha became the president, you realize that they will bring the way of doing things. Cas Bambili would have been a full fledged university with so many different departments. And they will do the same for the rest of the country, and the whole country will be transformed. They don't want it. The French want to control them and keep them in abject ignorance and perpetual, enslavement and depravity. And that's why they don't want an English speaking to take over that country. That they had that agreement. And so when in 1990s, things came to a head. People were angry with the way the country was going, and you had literally the English speaking forced democracy on La République du Cameroun as the Soviet Union collapsed, and there was a wind of change going across the world. People thought that was the moment, and Yondo Black tried to form a party and be allied. That they did not pick them up because of that. So Frundi, they had already created parties. Different people created the program of the party, and then they just used Frundi as a successful businessman in Bamenda and put him out there. So when they submitted their paper, they had difficulties, and that forced the country to open up to democracy. Mitterrand was the president of France. So they came out marching that they don't want precipitated democracy or multipartism, the CPDM talks. They marched and said they don't want that. And when Mitterrand said yes, they should do it, then they came just less than a year, a few months, and said yes, there's going to be competition even within the CPDM. And they start allowing some political parties to water down what was coming from the English side. But unfortunately for them, things came to a head. They had to allow Frundi with reluctance to run. And when he ran, he defeated Biya. Biya was defeated. And so they did not know what to do. And Mitterrand told them they should never allow that to happen. So then they announced that Biya had won. And when he emerged, he had beards. He used to shave them. So he had beards. And I don't know whether anybody remembers. I remember very well. Because
Yes,
he was
yes.
hiding in the bush, wondering what is happening and shocked that he had been defeated. So he emerged without having shaved his beards. So that is what happened there. They have that agreement that they will never allow an English speaking to rule. And if you go further, you realize that they say even if they allow some few individuals from other regions, particularly the English speaking region, to have some positions of prominence, like the prime minister or the Atanganji that people keep talking about. He was my classmate in secondary school. Um, that they will make sure that the second in command is the one who controls everything, and they are just a window dressing. That's what is going on.
Yes. And to add to what you just said, even when Ahijo decided to leave the government, they did not take the next person who would have been an English speaking person to be the president. That was Muna at that time. They did not take him to be the president. They went ahead and looked for the puppet Bia, who was ruling the country. So this is just to add to the point that they had already decided way back that someone from former British Southern Cameroons, an Anglophone, will never be in that position as the president. Let me read on the next few sentences. And yes, you just mentioned about Frundi, but I'll read it. It was with this in mind that Ni Frundi's victory was hijacked in 1992 without England having anything to say about it. The next point. However, the fear of Anglophone revenge is not entirely insignificant. The next point. Anglophones complain of their marginalization, but with the support of France, the threat is less.
Correct.
I want to go
So
back. Go ahead.
mhm. We
No,
have
go
always
ahead.
said that the French are supporting them, and I want to say it's not just the French supporting them. Britain allows France to do what they're doing, like we have said. Even the United States has historical links with France. When the United States was emerging as a nation, Benjamin Franklin was the ambassador of the US in Paris, and he forged relationships with France. The French had fought a 100 years war against the British in the continental Europe. There were times when the kings of England literally ruled parts of France, like Brittany. You know, the northern parts of France were controlled by Britain. So anyway, so France did not really like Britain, and they even lost their colonies in the United States, their territory, to the British. And so when the United States was separating from Britain, France was the first country to recognize the United States as an independent nation against Britain because of that, dissatisfaction they have with Britain. And then our Lady Liberty that carries the torch. That is a gift of France to the United States. So there is some historic relationship that the US has with France, separate from their strong ties with Britain. And so the US allows France to do things and tries not to challenge them. That's why you hear Biden saying he will collaborate with the French to solve problems in Africa. I mean, that is the current sitting president of the United States. When he came to power, when he was talking about his policies, he mentioned that he will collaborate with the French to solve problems in Africa. You know what the French do there? So basically, what I'm trying to say is that it's not just the French, but even and Britain giving up because of the bribe they had taken. But even the United States is with them. As far as other countries like Germany that people are wondering about, basically Germany goes along with France in the guise of the European Union. So they will claim that the European Union has said this. And then France is the loudest talking group among the European nations, even though the economy is carried by the Germans. And the Germans just allow the French to talk and work together with the French. So those are the collaborators. So when you talk about collaborators of La République du Cameroun, it's not just France. Then don't forget that this nation they call Israel is training the military of La République, the so-called BIR that are coming and burning our villages. They are also providing security for the president. And if you don't forget, I keep mentioning in 1986, that nation of Israel came and practiced their military weapon in Legnos, killing thousands of our people. At that time, Shimon Peres was the prime minister, and immediately a day after the disaster, Shimon Peres showed up in Yaoundé with 100 experts claiming that they were coming to help the country in the disaster. Just think for a moment. If a nation like Papua New Guinea has a sudden disaster that nobody was expecting, how can the Chancellor of Germany immediately show up the next day with 100 expert German scientists to help Papua New Guinea or the President of the United States? No, they came to gather the data of their experimentation when they came to kill our people. And Bia allowed them to kill our people in Legnos. And once in a while, they will pretend that, oh, the Legnos is doing this, Legnos is doing that. So what I'm trying to say is that the collaborators are not just the French, the British, even the Americans, the European Union, and the Israelis. Those are the people that are collaborating with them. They just put the French there as one.
Okay, so I read about marginalization. I'm going to take us back to the article that was written, this excerpt that was written 7 years ago by those priests that sent this memorandum to the to BIA. And this section is very important because people need to remember exactly what our people have gone through. When you hear things over and over again and it sits in your mind, then you know exactly why you must achieve full freedom. Symptoms of discontent. What some people mistake for the Anglophone problem are just symptoms, pointing to the fact that an overwhelming majority of Anglophone Cameroonians are not happy in the union which they entered with East Cameroon in 1961. They have complained against widespread, systematic marginalization in various aspects of public life, which point to the existence of a huge problem. Some of these problems include the following. So, Doc, I'm going to read this and I'll give you an opportunity to speak.
Yes.
Marginalization in human resource development and deployment. Number one, Anglophone Cameroonians have complained about the fact that national entrance examinations into schools that develop the human resources of this country are set per the French subsystem of education, which makes it very difficult for Anglophones and Francophones to compete on a level playing field. Majority of the membership of these examination boards are Francophones, so that the interests of Anglophone candidates are hardly, if ever, protected. Number two, out of the five ministries concerned with education, which is the means of transmission of culture, none of the ministers in is Anglophone, and none even qualifies to be a deputy of Secretary of State. This gives the impression of a calculated attempt to kill Anglophone culture. Number three, in human resource development, there is a gaping inequality in the distribution of posts of responsibilities between Anglophones and Francophones. Of the 36 ministers who defended the budgets for the ministries last month, only one was Anglophone. In addition, there seems to be key ministries that have been reserved for Francophone ministers only, and Anglophones do not even qualify to be Secretary of State under them. This includes, but not limited to, defense, finance, territorial administration, and economy. Number five, in the 1961 Constitution, the Vice President was the second most important personality in state protocol. Today, the Prime Minister, appointed Anglophone, is the fourth and most appointed person in state protocol after the President of the Senate and the President of the National Assembly. Even so, Anglophone Cameroonians believe that he wields no authority, and like was the case of J.N. Foncha as first national vice president of the CPDM, finds it impossible to use Francophone ministers, impossible to use his exalted position to help in any way, shape, or influence the policies of the party and nation. Number seven, there are clearly Francophone ministers who wield power more than he does. This seems to have been proven true in the last teachers' strike. When the Prime Minister was in Bamenda negotiating with the teachers' unions leaders, a group of Francophone ministers were giving a press conference in Yaoundé on the same issue, giving the impression that negotiations of the Prime Minister in Bamenda were of no consequence. I'll let you talk about some of this and then I'll read the next section.
Correct. All of that is accurate. In fact, when our forefathers went to Fumban, um, they were supposed to be accompanied by the United Nations, Britain, and France to sit down and craft out an agreement and constitution for a federated state of two equal states. But what happened was that those mischievous powers that I mentioned about conspired and killed the Secretary General of the United Nations, who was from Norway, and he was supposed to leave Congo and come to Boya to prepare our people to go to Fumban to talk about that federation. They conspired and killed him. So the United Nations was not in Fumban. The British were not showing up in Fumban. They put down the Union Jack and gave the flag to Ahijo and not Foncha. And so you basically had the French who were using Ahijo, and they produced a document written by the French. And our forefathers were surprised what they had done, and they hurriedly tried to contribute some ideas which were added reluctantly. And one of those was that it would be a federation of two equal states, that when the president comes from one region, the vice president will come from the other. And they said that the form of state will never be tampered with. But as you can see, they have destroyed all of those provisions, and they have not kept their word, to the point where right now the so-called prime minister actually is the fifth personality in the republic. You have the so-called president of the republic. You have the president of the Senate, which they reluctantly allowed to take place. The so-called speaker of the National Assembly, the chairman of the Economic and Council of the country before the so-called prime minister. And
Wow.
the prime minister you were talking about when they had that discussion in Bamida was Philemon Yang. When he was prime minister, the person who is now the minister of finance, who is from Bia's village, a son of one of Bia's teachers, was the secretary general of the prime minister's office, and he was the true prime minister. He ran the place and didn't care what Philemon Yang did. It got to a point where Philemon Yang was called was pronounced sick and he ran abroad for 3 weeks. It was such an embarrassment that they had to tell this guy to cool down, and they made Philemon Yang come back to give the impression that they still had a prime minister. So those figurehead people have no place. Even as you mentioned, one of the key ministries they mentioned was the Ministry of Territorial Administration. Now they have put my classmate there, Atanganji, and he goes around
Exactly.
making, as you know, that was just a window screen dressing. They make him carry the blame for all their mischief, so that when it gets hot, people will kill but him and not see the
Yeah.
Bulus. Now, under him, you have a Bulu Beti who is controlling everything, and he's just a noisemaker going around even mentioning Lucifer and asking the Muslim to swear on the Quran and all that kind of childish thing. So, no, those guys, they cannot be trusted. They have never kept their word, and you cannot trust them. You cannot live with somebody who lies constantly, and you cannot rely on their word.
Okay, so I'm going to read again some more examples of what our people have experienced for so many years, practically more than 6 decades, and are experiencing till date, living in that construct right now. Um, the treatment of the English language. There have been widespread protests about the way the English language has been treated in the public life of the nation. Number one, state institutions produce documents and public notices in French with no English translation and expect English-speaking Cameroonians to read and understand. Number two, national entrance examinations in some professional schools are set in French only, and the Anglophone candidates are expected to answer them. Sometimes this happens even in English-speaking regions. Number three, visitors and clients of government offices are expected to express themselves in French, even in the English-speaking regions, since most of the bosses in these offices speak French and make no effort to speak English. Number four, most senior administrators and members of the forces of law and order in the northwest and southwest regions are French speaking and make no effort to understand the cultures and customs of the peoples they are appointed to govern. Number five, members of inspection teams, missions, and facilitators of seminars sent from the ministries in Yaoundé to the English-speaking regions are generally predominantly French-speaking and expect to be understood by audiences which are predominantly English-speaking. Number six, the military tribunals in the northwest and southwest regions are basically French courts. Number seven, basic finance documents which businesses and other institutions are expected to work with are all in French. Examples include the COBAC code, the CIMA code, and the OHADA code. I continue. The flooding of Anglophone Cameroon with Francophone administrators and workers. Apart from the fact that ministers, directors generals, head of parasitals, senior divisional officers, heads of law, of enforcement officers, etc., are disproportionately Francophones, there seems to have been a conscious effort made to flood the northwest and southwest regions with Francophone heads of services. The magistrates in these regions are disproportionately Francophones, so are the senior divisional officers, the commissioners, the commandants. In addition, in the educational sector, there are increasingly Francophone principals posted to Anglophone schools. Personnel in hospitals, banks, and mobile telephone companies, even those which originate from Anglophone countries, are predominantly Francophones. And this extends to even non-expat workers in petrol stations. This situation is aggravated by the fact that these Francophone administrators are often overbearing, very arrogant, and treat people as if they were second-class citizens and have no iota of respect for the dignity of the human person. They'll go ahead and talk about this. I have one more
That
section
is
to read.
done. That is done deliberately on the advice of the French. The French literally discovered that all around the world, French culture and language is decreasing. So you have the English culture which dominate. Like I mentioned, every nation on earth must publish their documents in English. If you want to sell anything internationally, you must print your instructions in English plus any other language. The Spanish language has a great audience, not only in South America and so many others. But the French, all they have right now is only in Francophone Africa, and they find themselves losing. So they are trying their best to enforce Africans at least to keep the French, so it should not be a dying language and culture. But unfortunately, France is not a good country for us. They are not dynamic. They cannot produce. Um, what you realize is that Francophone African countries are even giving up French. Rwanda gave up French. They were controlled before by Belgium, with Zaire, before they got what they call their independence, and they were speaking French. They gave it up, and now they use English and other languages. Even Gabon recently decided to adopt English as one of its languages. So the French are the ones that are trying to impose French on Francophone African countries, and so this bear puppet is trying to do whatever the French have told him to do. So the French are the ones that told him to do all those things, and it's on purpose. And anybody who is following France, you're losing because France does not produce. Just take like cars. You are here in the United States. How many French cars have you seen on the streets? Even their Peugeot,
Really.
Renault, you don't see even one of them. Um, how many French products do you see produced here? None. The only place where they sell those French cars are in Francophone Africa, where you see some few Renaults and Peugeots and things like that. You don't see them internationally; they cannot compete. Even if you take soccer, their French soccer team are all Africans that immigrated there. You don't have the true, authentic white French doing anything. So France is a dead end cul-de-sac, a dead end. You get in, you can only come out where you entered. You can't go forward. That is why many francophones are no longer wanting to go to France. They want to come to North America. They want to go to Canada and other places. Even concerning Cameroon, those very francophones you're talking about, you will hear that their teachers have been put in a position where even after they succeed to graduate and had a job, they are not being paid for years. Many of them, in their thousands, have immigrated to Canada, where at least they get some pay. So all of that was done on purpose by the French, and it's just like Republic shooting themselves in the foot. That's why you see the country only going down and down and down. Countries that have given up France and given up French do well, like Rwanda. They progress very well. Even little Gabon was improving. La Republique, where are the roads? The little they have, they keep getting bad. The few bad airports don't even have lights. The ministries don't have. We don't even want to talk about their toilets, which are blocked and they cannot be drained. So no, it's done by the French, and unfortunately, La République is following the French to their death. They can only go down; they can never go up.
Yeah, speaking about how the country is only going down, we know what the West Cameroon had in those days. So I'm going to just read this section right now. Mismanagement of West Cameroon's patrimony. Apart from neglect of infrastructure of the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon and a mismanagement and ruin of buoyant companies like Cameroon Bank, West Cameroon Marketing Board, WADA in Womb, West Cameroon Cooperative Movement, etc., oil revenues are alleged to be used by those in power to feed the bellies of the allies and to stimulate the economy in other regions. In addition, there is also great anxiety in Anglophone Cameroon that its major agro-industrial enterprise, especially the Cameroon Development Corporation (CDC) and the Plantation Pamour du Cameroun (PAMOR), are sold or their headquarters moved elsewhere. So this is just to support the deterioration of that country, especially our section, because of both
Correct.
poor governance and the continued marginalization. I'll go back to the article. Okay, it says, the part I read before was Anglophone Cameroons complain of marginalization, but with the support of France, the threat is less. Well, here we are today. The next point. Besides, God has destroyed the human race several times in order to rebuild it. So in this war waged by our political party against Anglophones, the number of dead should not count. Now, remember, they understand that there's a war and the number of deaths should not count. Go ahead, Doc. What do you want to say about
Right.
this?
You hear them again, they keep confessing the truth and then they would publicly claim that it's not. So they say that they are the ones waging war against Anglophones. Anglophones did not pick up arms to fight them. They are the people who are waging war. And you also see that they have no pity in them, regardless of the dead. So that they go to rural villages and roast elderly, frail grandmothers in their homes, take even little children who are 2 months old and throw them in boiling oil. And they have no remorse, no sense, no feelings, and they are saying that the number of death does not matter, and claim that God had killed the human race and regenerated. They're thinking like the flood during the time of Noah or Sodom and Gomorrah and all that kind of thing. But they forget to know that the very God they are trying to mention there, He created all human beings to have life and even so more abundantly. There's a lot of scripture I can read about that, which I will not bring that right now. And so God is for life and righteousness, right living, doing that which is correct, morally upright. And they are morally depraved. I say they suffer from moral leprosy. So they cannot think that by killing the good, the Amazonians who are rigorous, and they continue taking bribes and doing the bad things, they will go anywhere. They cannot go anywhere. But besides that, their plan is going to fail.
Wow. This document is really an eye opener. As you said initially when it started, you said everybody needs to have access to this and read for themselves. So we need to keep on sharing this and sharing it so that everybody reads it. It says we must avoid any form of pity for Anglophones on the part of Francophones.
Correct.
I'm going to
That's
repeat.
why.
We must avoid any form of pity for Anglophones
Correct.
on the part of Francophones.
That is the reason why they kill our children, like in Gaboda we talked about, or they will fabricate things and go and kill people and lie that they were so-called Amber Boys, and you don't see them reacting. One of their so-called ministers, Jean de Momo, who is a Bamileke that the people detest, he says whatever is going on, he's drinking his palm wine, so he doesn't care what is going on. They have no feelings everywhere on earth. When people see people suffering and dying, like the Good Samaritan, you try to do something. You try to prevent it from happening. But as you have seen, since 2016, when they started killing our people massively, and remember, they were killing them secretly before that. Nobody was
Yeah.
talking about. Since 2016, when they started killing our people massively, the Francophones go around like nothing is happening. They don't want them to feel sorry. If you keep listening to their channels of news, like the so-called CRTV and their sister ones that were created, whether you call it Vision 4, whatever you call them, they will indoctrinate you. They even go to the point of characterizing Anglophones as dogs, rats, cockroaches, and think that that you kill the cockroaches, you kill the rats, and all that kind of thing. So that's how they are characterizing us. Yeah, in fact, if you know that somebody doesn't like you and wants to kill you, do you want to stay with that person? That is enough reason for us to say that no, we do not want to stay with them. We don't want them because they want to kill us. Not only that, we know that we are not part of them. Plus, if you know somebody wants to kill you, you leave them. And they seceded, so let them leave us alone and we will be fine by ourselves. Remember, Bia is
Okay.
the one who seceded from the union.
Absolutely. It goes on like this. Is it like the Bamili case? Anglophones must be suspect in the eyes of every Francophone.
Correct. So even the so-called ones that are collaborating with them, those who even are more advocates of the cruel, wicked regime like Atanganji and Diongute and all of those, they are still suspect. You will hear Francophones say that even those that are in the government are Ambazonians. They suspect them. They don't believe them. They just use them like you use tissue paper after you use the restroom and flush it away. They are just being used and given little small envelopes. And they think that because I was able to drive in a Mercedes and I think that I have some money and I have a so called title, I'm somebody. No, they don't like them. They despise them because of who they are, because they came from the former British Southern Cameroon.
Okay. Then the next point says the element of English culture among Anglophones must disappear, especially in the Northwest. I'm going to follow on and read something else, and I'll give you an opportunity to talk about
Yes.
that. This
Hmm.
same memorandum that was written by the bishops also has a subtitle: Gradual
Hmm.
Erosion of Anglophone Identity. I read:
Correct.
there
Hmm.
has been a misleading argument from some quarters where some have argued that an Anglophone is anyone who can speak English,
Hmm.
as a way of countering Anglophone Cameroonians who protest the issue we have enumerated above. It might be helpful for the purposes of our presentation and future discourse to note here that Anglophonism goes beyond the mere ability to speak or understand the English language. It speaks to a core of values, beliefs, customs, and ways of relating to other inherited from way of sorry relating to the other inherited from the British who ruled the regions from 1916 to 1961. Anglophonism is a culture, a way of being with, oh my goodness, my computer,
Yeah.
a way of being which cannot be transmitted by merely learning a language. In
Correct.
fact, as Dr. Anthony D intimates, Southern Cameroonians had a distinctive outlook and way of life that went further than the mere fact that the educated ones among them spoke the English language or a version of it. So therefore, language could not even be the qualifying factor. The Anglophone identity is the reason most Southern Cameroonians who voted to join the Republic of Cameroon in 1961 did so. It was to preserve their cultural identity as a distinct people. Anglophone Cameroonians are slowly being asphyxiated as every element of their culture is systematically targeted and absorbed into the Francophone common culture and way of doing things. These include the language, the educational system, the system of administration and governance, where appointed leaders are sent to lord it over people who cherish elected leaders, the legal system, and the transparent democratic process where elected leaders are answerable to the electorate who put them there in the first place. uh, End this section. Anglophone Cameroonians have seen through this and are raising their voices in protest. The two All Anglophone Conferences, AAC 1 and 2, of the early 1990s, the rise and popularity of the SCNC and other secessionist voices are born of the frustration of Anglophone Cameroonians of being ignored and ridiculed for asking for what they deem to be theirs by right, namely the preservation of their culture. You would remember that in his resignation letter from the post of Vice President of the CPDM on the 9th of June 1990, J.N. Foncha cited in point 9 of the letter as a reason of resigning the fact that the Constitution was in many respects being ignored and manipulated. I've read a lot, but I'd like you to talk about
Correct.
this.
So, in their feeble minds, they're trying to reduce it to just speaking like the English language. That's not what it's about. It's about character. The Bible says that righteousness will lift a people up, but sin is a reproach to any people. You read that in the book of Proverbs, chapter 14, I think.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
basically, the problem is not the language. How many people in the Northwest speak several languages? We speak our own original native language, then maybe about three or four others. those of us who went to school and studied hard, we speak English, we speak French like I do, and I also speak German because I went to university in Germany. You can't study in
Mhm.
Germany, take exams in the university without speaking the German language. All those are just languages. If you care, you add Chinese and Japanese, even Russian to it. That's not what it's about. It's not a language issue. It's an issue of moral rectitude. The situation with the Northwest province is that if you go to the Northwest region, you find out that, or in Ambazonia, or all of English speaking Cameroon, there are so many churches of all the different denominations, whether they are Catholics, Presbyterians, or Baptists, and even now non denominational, so that the people are used to reading the Bible
Mhm.
and living by biblical standards, and that is what has helped them to have a sense of moral rectitude, or doing that which is right. People who don't read the Bible don't know much. They live in sin, and for them stealing is like normal, embezzling is like normal. So the character of the people, the people that they are calling here Anglophones, the people of the original people of the Northwest and Southwest regions, is the fact that they are embedded in the Bible. They grew up in mission schools, went to mission churches, and learned the scriptures, and they have a sense of moral rectitude. That is where it's about. Even the English speaking, like the British or the people of the United States or the English nations, whether it's Canada, Australia, New Zealand, when they fall off from doing the things that the Bible describes, they too will get into trouble. So that's why you see them promoting homosexuality, lesbianism, even Canada allowing humans to marry animals and things like that. That the fact that they speak English does not make them a good country. That is not what makes you a good country. It's doing that which is right. And so the differentiation between us and them is that the people who are of the English speaking origin were graced, let me use the word graced here, to have several missionaries settle. And what happened in the Northwest is that the temperature around Bamenda is very comfortable. So many of the missionary institutions that came decided to go and put their headquarters in Bamenda, like the Baptists, you can name all the others. And that's why you have a strong religion. If you go to Bamenda, almost every hill has a church.
Mhm.
So the people grew up soaked with the Bible, and they're not perfect, but at least that gives them a guiding principle. But in Francophone Cameroon, they don't know much. It was English speaking who were going to each Cameroon and trying to introduce them to the Bible. They had some few uh, churches and things like that, but they were not dynamic like those from the English speaking region. So if they are trying to reduce it to English and French, they are wasting their time and lying. So even if they learn English, like you read there, that they will send their children to the good schools. They want to destroy the
Mhm.
education system. They will send their children to the good school, even if they send them to the United States or the English speaking nation, so that they come back speaking English and French. If they don't have these moral principles in their hearts and in their lives, they will still live depraved lives. It's an issue of living
Absolutely.
according to biblical principles. It's not a matter of English. And if you don't know any English, but you live according to biblical principles, you will experience what the Bible says, that righteousness will uplift a nation. You don't have to be
Right.
speaking English to do that. You can be speaking Portuguese to experience all of that. So they are just, again, being stupid and foolish there. But there's nothing wrong in speaking as many languages as you can. I'm very happy to read
Right.
documents in German without looking for a translator. I'm happy to read documents in French without looking for a translator. I'm, of course, happy to read documents in English. Then we have, if I can speak my local languages, like three or four. We grew up in Canberra, so I understand some in Canberra. And I worked in Bangor, and I understand some Lamso. We went to school in Bicom. I understand a little bit of Bicom. What I mean is, it's not an issue of language. You can speak as many as you want. It's issue with morals, and that is
Right.
what differentiates us from them. And they say they want to destroy it. They will not succeed, because the Bible says that Jesus said, "I will build my church, and the gates of hell cannot prevail against it." You cannot defeat faith in the hearts of people. You
Mhm.
can come with your wickedness and shoot and kill some, but you cannot defeat what is faith in our hearts and our beliefs. So they have already lost before they even started. That is a vain talk that has
Absolutely.
been there. Correct.
Absolutely. Okay, there are some 2 points that they mentioned that I don't agree with, but I'm going to read it and then you can talk about it. He says, they wrote that Anglophones in the Northwest are essentially Bamilekis, while those in the Southwest are Sawa and others. But we must prevent them from realizing this. And then the next line says, indeed, if the Anglophones in the Northwest become aware that they are Bamilekis, their solidarity could seriously harm us. What
What they have
exactly is
said
this?
they, what they have said is true. To figure that out, you have to go back and read before the white man came to Africa, the migration of the different ethnic groups. Most of the people that populated not only Africa but around the world, you can read even for those who are not Christians about the migration of people. They say the first human beings originated from around Ethiopia and Sudan. But if you
Okay.
take even the biblical concept, most of the people who migrated came from around Egypt and Sudan. When they say Egypt, it's not the boundary that you have today. Egypt went right far down to Sudan and Ethiopia. That's where the population was concentrated the most. And you have major migratory routes. So you had people who went down the Rift Valley all the way to South Africa, and then some of them entered the Congo Basin, and they reached the Atlantic Ocean, and you could not go further because you cannot cross. If you can't swim, you would drown in the Atlantic Ocean. Then some of them, Lake Chad was very big in those days. Some of them migrated uh, around the Sahara Desert. Some of them migrated around Lake Chad and went all the way to Senegal. And then they started going down, like the kingdoms of Ghana and the Yoruba nation and all those people. They went down towards the Atlantic Ocean, towards there. What happened with Cameroon is that if you look, the so-called Adamawa mountain range, it starts in the Atlantic Ocean with
Mhm.
small countries like Principe and all of those. And then it comes with the, Mount Cameroon, Coupe Manengoba, the two lakes. And then you come through Lubialem country, you come through Momo, and then you come through the northwest, you go through Ketunjua, Bui, and it crosses and goes to Adamawa, that mountain range. Now, you should remember that when our people were migrating, there were no roads. All these roads that we are asking to be tarred, you didn't have them. People had just footpaths. And then you also had old, frail people who were walking with sticks. So the group that came and entered Adamawa and did not go across to Senegal, they were caught up in Adamawa range. They call it uh, Tika Mbam Plain. So from that group, they had dominant leaders who had, as you know, our people are polygamists. They had several wives and they had multiple children. So when the dominant leader, whose name was Ndeh, died, most of his sons now separated and formed their own kingdoms. And the first among them is who has become the paramount chief of Bafoussam, Mifi. And the youngest among them is who people call the Sultan of Fumban. And
Mhm.
his sister is his own sister from the same mother is the one that founded what you call the Bansot people, Fondom. So most of
Okay.
those ethnic groups they migrated. So east of this mountain range, most of them are related, and it's not just small thing carved out as a western region, plus what you want to call the northwest region. The people are spread out right even through to Central African Republic, the people who migrated from there. And then west of that mountain range, you have people who did not come to where they are from the east. They came back from the west, like the Manu people. The Manu people are literally related to the Igbos. They have the same way of doing things, the same way of dressing, the same kinds of dancing, and they're culturally related. You have some few other dotted groups like in Donga Mantung, you have the Njaris. They came
Mhm.
more from Nigerian side. Now, coming back to the coast, what happened? So you have these groups that were migrating from the north, south, and the people of Lobialem are Bamlikes basically. So this group was migrating from the north south. You have people who did not come from the north; they came but from the coast. What happened is those who came to the Congo Basin and were walking along the coast of the Atlantic Ocean, they were
Mhm.
now moving inwards. So the Doualas are literally related to the Bakweris, and
Okay.
then you go right through to India and even parts of Calabar. Those are the people who worship their gods in the ocean. People think that if they're afraid of something, they think there is God. If they're afraid of a mountain, they think that God is on the mountain. If they're afraid of the ocean, they think that God comes from the mountain. If they're afraid of a cave, they think that God comes from the cave. So those guys who migrated along the coast of the ocean, they go and worship their gods in the ocean. And as they moved inward, then they met the group that was coming from the north. So that most of these Douala, Bakwere, going up to Indian area, parts of Calabar area, they are related. And then even right through to Bakundu in Kumba area, there those are they originated more from the south. But those who came from the north, like I mentioned, particularly the Lobialen guys, they are from Chang. So the people there in there that I still want to study and find out more are the people of Kupe Maninguba. I don't know whether their original fathers came from the south or they came from the north. So, in principle, what they have said there is true. But that does not. So, what they are afraid is that if the people in the northwest know that they are Bamileke, and the Bamileke knows that the people of the northwest are with them from the same ethnic stock, then they are afraid that they will take power. But they did it already. When Frundi came to power, who were the groups that were the strongest? All of Anglophone Cameroon, particularly of the northwest region, the western region, right through to Douala, and you had all the ghost towns, and Bia was defeated in 1992. When this group
Right.
work together, they're finished. So they're trying to say they're trying to hide it. They're hiding it from who? I can give that lecture if they care, if I had time. I can tell them who they're from. The Bulu Betis, where Bia is from, they are related to the Fangs who are in Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, and Congo. And Bia's father actually came from Equatorial Guinea. He was a catechist, just like Foncha's father was a catechist from Chang. And Foncha's father was sent to Bamenda because he had leprosy. So, had people, stigmatized leprosy, they sent him
Wow.
away to go and get treatment. So that's how Foncha ended up in where he was in Kwende. But Bia's father came from Equatorial Guinea. So he was born in Cameroon, but his father was not an original Cameroonian by the German boundaries that were put there. But their ethnic group is related to those. The people that they characterize here are the Betis. The Betis were pushed along the Senegal region when these groups that I just talked about, the so-called Bamileke guys, the Tikari and Bamplain, Betis were pushed down south of the Senegal area. So they did not come from the forest. And the people who pushed them were like the Fulbeys and all the groups in the north, Ahijo's people. They pushed them south. So the Betis were pushed down. And if you read this article, they will tell you that they don't want the Betis to know that they have any kind of relationship with the Bamilekes, so that they will always remain eternal enemies. But the momentum of this wicked, cruel article are the Bulus, Bias people. They just want to use the Betis as a shield, cover themselves, so that if there is any blame in the future, they will accuse by the Betis that they're the people who
It
destroyed
is.
the country. But it is the Bulus using the Betis to destroy the country, and they want to put the blame in the future when this is discovered on the Betis, and they think they want to make the Betis to feel that the Bamilekes are their enemies, and not to feel that they have any ethnic connections, which happened in the past before the colonial masters came. But again, it just demonstrates their level of ignorance and stupidity. So what they have said there is true, but it has no consequence to what we're talking about,
So,
and they have already failed.
wow. Thanks so much for that enlightenment, Doc. I think there should be another program on the horizon where we go over all this cultural background for people to know all these different tribes and their origin. It sounds like a good education for our people. I'm going to read two sections and then we're going to talk about it and then we're going to conclude. In terms
Mhm.
of political elites, there's a section on this document about political elites. We must ensure that the political elites of other tribes are always illegitimate.
Correct.
Never appoint someone who has the sympathy of his or her own people. Always appoint someone who is hated by his or her own people.
Yeah.
All elected officials must be illegitimate. To achieve this, we must, even within our own ranks, favor the victory of the less popular so that they owe their victory to us. There is no surer way to win loyalty. And finally, on this
Right.
political elite section, from the head of department to the minister, we must never appoint anyone who has political support, even by our own making. So, what
Right.
Doc talk about these political elites, and then we'll talk
Basically,
about development.
Atanganji is a very good example. And
Example.
they say birds of the same feather flock together. They have put on paper what they have been doing. If you know one of BS ministers, you don't need to find out about the others. If you know a Tanganji, you don't need to find out who is representing the Eastern region and who is representing Adamawa. They have said that they will find somebody who the people don't like and impose that person on them and make sure that the person is the least popular in that area so that they will owe their allegiance to the Bulus for having given them the privilege to occupy a position. That's why you see somebody like Atangaji making the foolish noise and even insinuating Lucifer and stupid things like that. So that is what they have been doing. They find somebody who is unpopular, and when somebody starts becoming popular, Bia will go and find somebody else in his region to counteract them, so that they start fighting with each other. This is done on purpose, so that everybody here who thinks that it's a privilege to be appointed into any position will know that they have to always be grateful for the Bulus. Basically, you call Bia, he's somebody who's going to die soon, for the Bulus for having allowed them to occupy a certain position. That's what they are doing, you know.
Wow.
And they say that even if they give any of those so-called allies a position like Atanganji, calling himself Minister of Total Administration, or Philemon Young, who is now giving the medals to be able to hang on people's chests, or John Gute, who is called the Prime Minister, they have to make it in such a way that the second in command is from the Bulu Betis, those Bulus, and define the work in the office in such a way that the real control is in the hands of the Bulus. And then this other one is just a window dressing, which is what we've talked about. So the prime minister just goes around and cuts ribbons and pretends to go to airports to receive presidents when they come. He does not have any power in that office. And the same thing with Atanganji, he's just making noise. He has no power in the so-called Ministry of Territorial Administration. So, and it's the same thing with all the others. That's what they have done. We had thought that that's what they are doing, but they have written it down on paper, and people know for
Yeah.
sure that truly this is what has been happening. They do it everywhere, whether it's the military, all arms, police, gendarmerie,
Yes.
army, they do the same there. So that even if you have a general or a colonel, the someone in command controls the weapons. You've heard about it, that the big man only has a small thing to protect himself. The person who controls all the weapons is the bulus in that office, and
Yes.
that's what they have done.
As a matter
Mhm.
of fact, in terms of development, they have the same strategy. Although
Yeah.
this article focuses mostly on Bamileke, but it applies to us. It says,
Mhm.
today, the Bamileke areas are at an unacceptable level of development. We have an obligation to slow down this development. To do so, we must appoint special sub-prefects whose mission will be to destabilize the development committees that are swarming there. If we leave the Bamilekes free to develop, we run the risk of other ethnic groups making demands that could challenge our power. As the Bamilekes have the capacity to develop themselves without waiting for the state, we must create the administrative conditions that must be met before any act of development can take place. For example, if they want to build drinking water projects, we will define the administrative procedures that will force them to abandon the projects.
Can you imagine?
Then
They
another,
have already told you what the DOs do. It doesn't matter what his name is and whatever position, whether it's the sub prefect or the senior divisional officer, their role is to make sure that people don't have a level of ingenuity and develop their areas. That's why they bring all those administrative things and keep making you bring papers and give bribes here and there. Their purpose is to destroy any level of development. That brings
yeah,
us now to a question: what is the education they had in Inam? They never had any authentic, true education. These are just people dressed up in black and white, driving in cars with empty heads. They know nothing. They have been indoctrinated, I believe, hypnotized to go out there and destroy communities and make sure that they do not develop, and calling themselves senior divisional officers or whatever you call their positions. They have already described to you what the so-called DOs do. So, like the Bamli case, you know them. They are very dynamic. They, even if you don't give them positions, they will do their best, go around the world, generate money, and try to develop themselves. And they look at the development in around Bafusam and the Bamileke land, and they're jealous of it. They don't want that level of development to cause the people in the eastern region or the northern region to say, "Hey, it looks like the government did something over there, and we are not having anything." So they want to basically make sure that they don't develop. Can you imagine that a community only wants a drinking pipe, born water, And somebody who claims to have graduated from Enam driving a Mercedes, his purpose is to make sure that community gives up building the drinking pipe-borne water. Can you imagine them putting that on paper? That is the role of a so-called DO driving a car with an army driving behind him and holding guns. That is ridiculous. That is so ridiculous and disgraceful. Anyway, they will be
It's a
swept into the
travesty.
dustbin of history. So it's just a tragedy.
Yeah, two more sections, the army and the judiciary. The nerve
Yeah.
centers must be held by us. It's enough to place a few other tribes in impressive positions, but define their roles so that the second in command, who must be one of us, holds the real power. And in
Correct.
education, now this is very important in education. No one should forget that the destiny of a people is the fruit of its education system.
Hmm.
We must lower the quality of our country's schools and send our children to study in countries with good education systems.
Hmm.
There, they will come back to run the country with sure peace of mind. Under the
Hmm.
guise of education for all, we need to make schools cheaper but lower their quality. This will avoid harmful intellectual competition.
Correct. Which is why they did everything to destroy the education system in English speaking Cameroon. So, with all these things, they went and forced the missions institutions to go and open schools in East Cameroon and then destroy all our schools in our region so that we don't have the education. You hear them putting on paper that they want to deliberately reduce the education level so that children are not educated, they are miseducated. You have people who were speaking Franglais, actually worse than Creole, and somebody giving a lecture in botany when he never even did biology,
Wow.
saying stupid things. And then you even had a situation where after GCE results came out, students were given A grades in subjects they never took. They were given A grades in subjects that they never wrote any exam on. They never even studied that in school. So they have literally reduced the education system. And in their feeble minds, they say they will send their own children to privileged schools around the world. Okay, let's take Paul Biya as an example. He sent his son to the US, but he never succeeded. He never finished in the US. They even sent them to Europe, and they never succeeded to finish schools in Europe. So they had to take his daughter and the other son and put them back in Enam. They were not attending class, and they were given grades. And I think Brenda was number 15 of the list when she never went to school. And they go around smoking banger and putting rings on her nose, and you see all that thing in line. So what I'm saying is that in their feeble minds, they think that they will send their children abroad. And because their children came from abroad with some papers with supposed degrees, then people will think that they have a better education as they have reduced the level of education in the country, and then they will now control the place. But no, the issue is an issue of morals. Their children did not succeed because they don't have the moral rectitude. If you cannot humble yourself when you go to college and sit in class with your friends and study in collaboration with your friends because you call yourself a president's child and they bring you to school in a limousine and you feel high minded, you don't even pay attention, how can you pass the test? You can't, which is why Brenda Beer did not succeed in California. She was
Yeah.
living in Beverly
Beverly
Hills
Hills.
in a big house. They were hiring limousines to take her to class and all that, and she could not cope, so she left the place. It is a moral thing. It is not where you think you send your children, and they have failed because they don't have the morals. That's why Bia is the prime example. They are preparing his son to take over, just like they prepared the son of the Sultan of Human to take over from his father when he went to Enam. Most of their ministers are sending their children to Enam. I've already said the level of education of Enam is inferior. I don't think it's even up to first school living certificate level. They're indoctrinating them to come and disturb little water projects in villages. So you can even imagine what kind of education they're getting. They're sending their children there to come, and the purpose is just to say that they have high-ranking positions and embezzle money, and they don't have the moral rectitude to do that. So they will not succeed. They have already failed. And even if they send their children abroad, they will not do well. I know some who came here and they go around priding themselves that they are the most intelligent. And if you see the papers and things that they have written, they're so inferior, you can't even talk about it. It's disgraceful.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Doc. I'm going to read this section as we conclude this program today. It's really been enlightening. And again, we bring this at the end of the year as we move on to 2024 for people to always keep in mind that The Federal Republic of Ambazonia, our new government, the government of Southern Cameroons, is here to stay. And we need everyone on board, because if you want a future for your children, your great grandchildren, it's obvious from this document that we just read that they will have no place. They will not have the possibility to being the best they can be, to reaching the stars. They will not have that opportunity. So we must all do what we can to make sure that we support our nation, Southern Cameroons, Ambazonia. Let me read this final section and then I'll have you conclude. It says, a certain religious leader is credited to have said, there really can be no peace without justice. There can be no justice without truth. And there can be no truth unless someone rises up to tell you the truth. What we have set forth here is what we believe to be the truth, told as part of our prophetic mission, in the hope that it will bring peace, it will bring justice, peace, and harmony to this country, which we all hold dear to our heart. So that was the conclusion of this memorandum. This was in 2016. Remember that at that time, most of us were not talking about Ambazonia as we are talking today. These men of God gave Biya, the CPDM regime, an opportunity to make significant changes. But where are we 7 years after? More than 50,000 lives have been lost. We have refugees, our own brothers and sisters, suffering in neighboring countries, a lot of them in Nigeria. Do you think they would have gone to Nigeria if CPDM regime, Biya, had taken this memorandum to heart and made some significant changes? The answer is no. The answer is no. Because remember, back then, most of us were comfortable in the construct of one Cameroon, in the sense that we thought that we were in a peaceful environment. But those who knew the truth knew that for the past 60 years, things had deteriorated to such an extent that if no significant changes were made, then there would be no hope for our people. And here we are today. We are happy that we have a government in place. Doc, I'm going to have you conclude, make your conclusion statement as we round up the show.
Correct. So, it's really interesting. I want to encourage our people that those people who wrote that article are not God. They do not control anything. The Bible says, I'll bring some scriptures here because this is, as I mentioned, the moral standard of the people of the Northwest region or Ambazonia, as they are claiming and calling it Anglo-Saxon. Our moral standard is what is written in the Bible. Now, it says here in Colossians chapter 1, verses 16 to 20, it says, by Christ were all things created that are in heaven and are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions, principalities or powers. All things were created by him and for him. And he is before all things, and by him all things consist. And he is the head of the body, which is the church, who is the beginning and the firstborn from the dead. And in all things he might have the preeminent position. For it pleased the Father to put all things under him. And having made peace through his blood by the cross, he reconciles all things unto himself. What I wanted to bring out here is you realize that there is God who created everything. Mm-hmm. And he has put everything under his son, Jesus Christ, that we're celebrating this time of the year, that we say Jesus was born, even though he was not born on December 25th. And mm-hmm. he is the one who has full control of everything, not these individuals who have put something down and claim that they have authority. These are just common thieves. They just want to steal resources, hold it in their bank accounts abroad and at home, and then think that they are more important because they are driving cars and living what they consider to be luxurious homes. But unfortunately, they still have to die after a few years here on planet Earth. But God, who created everything, has everything under good control. The Nebuchadnezzar tried it, And when they were also proud, God humbled them, got him to eat with animals in the bushes for 7 years until he repented and recognized that God alone rules in heaven. And so in the book of Revelation, chapter 4, verse 11, it says, God alone, thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and for your pleasure they are and were created. In chapter 5 of Revelation, chapter 12 to 13, it says that they were saying in a loud voice, worthy is the Lamb that was slain to receive power and riches and wisdom and strength and honor and glory and blessing. And every creature which is in heaven and on the earth and under the earth, and such as are in the sea and all that are in them, they were saying blessings and honor and glory and power unto him who sits on the throne. In chapter 7, Revelations, from verse 9 to 17, sorry if it appears to be long, it says that after this I beheld, and lo, a great multitude which no man could number, all nations, including Amazonia, and kindreds and people and tongues stood before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes and with palms in their hands, singing salvation unto our God, which seated upon the throne, and unto the Lamb. And all the angels stood up, saying, Amen, and blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power be alone unto the God who created all things, and for his glory. For the Lamb which is in the midst of the throne shall feed the people and shall lead them in and out. Now, the nation of Ambazonia has recognized this God of all creation. That's why in our national anthem we sing, Praise the Son, Jesus Christ, our Savior, who granted us our freedom. And we recognize the God of all creation as the watchman over the nation. So I want us to know that these people are just wasting their time. The Nebuchadnezzar did not succeed. The Caesars did not succeed. Recent dictators, whether it's Mobutu, Idi Amin, never succeeded. Therefore, Biya and his group, they have already lost. It doesn't matter what they put down on paper or try to hide. Even if he dies and they try to dress up his skeleton and claim that he is still alive, don't worry about it. He is finished. Let us hold on to our moral principles and not let them despise us. It is not the English language. Speak as many languages as you can. Study their French. Even Mandela went and was speaking the African language when he was speaking with Frederick de Klerk in South Africa. Oh, and he was eventually president of South Africa. Learn good English, learn French, add other languages to it, speak as many local languages as you can. It is not a language issue, it's a moral character issue. And because they are not morally correct, they have already lost. That is my reassurance to the children of Amazonia.
Thank you so much. What a great way to end the year, with a great reassurance that God is on our side. We use this phrase time and time again, that it's a God ordained revolution. It's a God again. I don't want to use the word struggle anymore because we've gone beyond that. And we are now a government, thanks to the work of the president and those who are working with him. I want to wish everyone, as we conclude this program today, I thank you so much, Dr. Lobadi, for joining us. I really want to wish everyone a very, very Merry Christmas and a very prosperous and happy New Year. We have gone a long way. You just have to stay the course. You just have to believe that you're fighting for the truth, you're fighting for justice, and only then will we get peace. Remember, we want peace in both La République du Cameroon and Southern Cameroon's Amazonia. That is the only way for those two countries to live side by side, is for them to live as separate entities. And we're hoping that in 2024, a lot of good things will come our way as we try our best to get control of our territory. And we hope, with God's blessings, that we may spend Christmas in our territory. Until then, the Horizon says thank you, and we'll see you in 2024. Long live the Federal Republic of Amazonia. Long live the government of Southern Cameroons. Short live the liberation journey. Thank you so much.
Sovereign silhouette, the emblem of Ambazonia. From the azure embrace of the Atlantic reflecting from the Ambas Bay, the iconic Faco Mountain ascends with a silent, stoic grace, carving a silhouette against the sky. This towering sentinel is more than a geographical marvel. It is the heart of southern Cameroons, the stoic guardian of Ambazonia, a symbol steadfast as the unyielding spirit manifests in the unity of the land's 13th counties. Encircling this earthen spire, a dove of peace edges its arc, untouched and serene. As it soars with wings unfurled, it casts shadows upon the land, each feather a brushstroke of tranquility. Against the canvas of the heavens, 13 stars glimmer, the celestial acknowledgement of each county's shared dreams and harmonious virtues. The dove, in its eternal flight, is not merely a bird, but an embodiment of the collective longing for a peaceful existence under a shared identity. Beneath the mountain top, firmly grounded in the richness of the earth, twin elephant tusks rise as natural monuments. Their arcs, regal and commanding, capture the noble essence of the land spirit animals. This emblem, this seal of Ambazonia, is no mere insignia. It is the beacon that illuminates the path to shared prosperity. It is an oasis of unity in a world parched by discord, a visual whisper of a nation's promise, echoing across generations. Every curve, every symbol within the emblem tells the story of southern Cameroons, an epic scripted by the enduring strength and unity of its communities. Each page imbued with the hopes and enduring spirit of its people. Sovereign silhouette, the emblem of Ambazonia.
Amazonian Presidential Recognition Awards, APRA 2023.
In the heart of Ambazonia, a new chapter unfolds as valor meets recognition. This is not just another evening news story, it is the dawn of a tradition that will echo through time. Join us on December 30th for a historic broadcast as we bring to you the first ever Ambazonia Presidential Recognitions Awards, APRA 23. Beneath the indomitable skies of freedom, President Samuel Ikome Sako will honor our heroes, men and women whose pursuits for autonomy have become the lifeline of a nation. In a land graced by bravery, watch as we cast a spotlight on those who've sacrificed beyond measure. APRA 23 isn't just an awards ceremony. It is the embodiment of our unity, strength, and the unyielding spirit of Ambazonia. Ignite the torch of pride with us. Feel the heartbeat of a cultural renaissance, ready to inspire generations to come. APRA 23 aims to pave the path towards monumental accomplishment. Witness the extraordinary, be part of a legacy as we broadcast live from the first APRA, where the end of the year marks the beginning of a lasting tribute. For the people of Ambazonia, join us in embracing this journey, commemorating the guardians of the Ambazonian heritage and scripting the narrative for the Ambazonian future. APRA 23, a testament of resilience, honoring the soul of a nation. This December 30th, be there when history is made.
Echoing with hope, Ambazonian Presidential Recognition Awards, APRA 2023, where heroes rise and legends are born. Wishing all the people of southern Cameroon, Ambazonia, a Christmas filled with hope, peace, and the warmth of unity in the face of conflict. May the spirit of Christmas bring comfort to the prisoners of conscience, strength to the refugees, and courage to the Ambazonian Restoration Forces. Let the light of the season inspire us to stand together in solidarity and work towards a future of peace and freedom. From ABC Amber TV, on behalf of the government of Ambazonia, may the message of love and resilience shine brightly in the hearts of all. Christmas of hope, unity in adversity,